Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel. I am so happy to have you back again for a interesting look into what I've been thinking about. I hope you've been taking care of yourselves and you're doing well. We are in the thick of winter and I am freezing. Winter has never been my favorite and it still is not my favorite. So I am ready for the summer to come back. Like, it must come back now, guys. Like, I am done with this winter. It's been quite cold. Relatively, I think each year it just gets colder progressively. So it is me wearing, like I always say, all of my clothes just to keep me warm. I am ready for the season to be over, but I'm also grateful for the time it brings. I think it creates more connections, at least for me in my circle. We're more indoors and we're more doing connecting stuff than we are out in the streets. And it's just a different connection during winter, but I am ready for winter to say bye-bye. I am happy to now not have to put on all of my clothes. I hope you're staying warm and you're staying hydrated, not dehydrated, hydrated, and taking care of this is the season of the coughs and the flus. Take care of yourselves. Today I wanted to come on and do something a bit different. I'm going to read an excerpt of something I was writing the other day. Just thoughts that were, I guess, on my mind at that present moment, and I just want to expand on it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to read it and then I'm going to talk to it a bit just to frame the context of today's vlog. Okay, so it reads, love doesn't just wither or end. It ends when you stop practicing qualities that nourish love. You stop being patient and you start critiquing. You stop communicating and you start feeling entitled to them knowing what you haven't communicated. You stop being compassionate. Now, this really made an impression to me. And in relation to that, I was just thinking about, you know how we talk about relationships going through phases, and then everybody says in a new relationship, you're in what we call the honeymoon phase, where you're dotting on each other, where you are overly understanding. And I guess in that phase of the relationship, which is why we call it the honeymoon, everything is hunky-dory. Most of the time you are sensitive to your partner's needs. You're more open to being understanding. And I think love is just on lockdown at that point in time. And it got me thinking, why do we even have something called a honeymoon phase? Is the expectation that that is just a phase in the relationship and we can't have that same, I guess, type and feel for the longevity of that relationship? So it's not actually a honeymoon phase. It's just that we are on honeymoon. And based on what I just read, it just made me understand that perhaps what we should be asking is, what is the shift in how well we are expressing our love? And that's on both partners. And expressing meaning you being on the receiving end of being the one that understands your partner and how to convey love in a manner that they too understand, and vice versa. And I think that's what primarily the honeymoon phase is, right? And just asking myself, perhaps the question we should be asking is, how consistently are we in the duration of our relationships applying that principle to say, the way I was, how consistently are we applying in our relationships the concept that you really are excited to be in a relationship with this person, and you genuinely want to think of how your actions and your reactions impact them. And at the center of it in this honeymoon phase, you're really just trying to make your partner feel loved, cherished, appreciated, and you're actively doing it because you're consciously being the one who says, okay, I'm going to be a bit more understanding and I'm going to be a bit more patient. Is that something that should be a phase, or should, it just made me start to think, is it a phase, Michelle, or are you more inclined when you are trying to cement I'll call it a basis or a foundation for a relationship? Are you more inclined to be more loving towards your partner than, for instance, when you've kind of established a foundation? Does it become less important? And I don't know if important is the right word to use, but does it become something you're less conscious of? Maybe that's even better, that you're not doing the most that you could for your partner. And just as I say that, something comes to mind where I have a different view on how we present ourselves to other people versus our partners, right? You know, the old saying that says you hurt those you love the most. The context of that makes me feel like we become too expectant that our loved ones are going to understand us because that's what they've shown us, and we know that they love us, and we forget that they too are human. So we also need to be considerate to the level and degree that we expect them to be understanding, to be caring, to be there for us, for all of those things. And I just feel that the love doesn't actually wane or change. A lot of people say you go through the honeymoon phase and then love dies or fades or it becomes less. I don't think so. I really think it's because you're not doing the things that are nourishing it. And if you understood what those things were in the initial phases of your forming that relationship and how good it was in this honeymoon phase, you have the blueprint of how to maintain it in a honeymoon phase for its entire longevity, instead of it just being a phase that is more the concept in foundation of your new relationship. And then once it's kind of gone into a routine, some of that falls away. So yeah, today I really wanted to come and I don't know if I have a definitive answer, but it's a question worth sharing to say, is it that we call it the honeymoon phase because it wanes and the notion that the things we were doing are no longer as impactful because now we have cemented a foundation for our relationship? Or is it really that that phase ends? I mean, perhaps it is a phase. Psychologically, I'm sure we could analyze the kind of, I guess, the hormones that drive you being that loving and that, might be very heightened in a new relationship because of the attraction, right? That could also be a thing. Look, I don't know. But I guess for me, it just made me more conscious about asking myself, what are those things that made me feel like the relationship was in what we call the honeymoon phase? And how well am I consciously doing those things throughout the entirety of that relationship? And I fell short. Some things I wasn't even certain were things that made that honeymoon phase the honeymoon phase, which then begs the question, who am I presenting in that honeymoon phase if it's not something that I can sustain for the entirety of that relationship? Look, again, today was more of a really thinking out loud session. I don't think I have an answer, but I think where I'm getting to is maybe we should be more understanding of the impact we have on the level, type, or I guess gravitas of how well our love is showing up in our relationships, and we are accountable for that. And if we feel like something has changed and the relationship doesn't feel as good as it did in the beginning, where it was the honeymoon phase, it shouldn't be, I guess, acceptable for you to say, well, it was a phase, now it's gone. We should really be asking of ourselves, what was it in that phase that really made it feel like a honeymoon? And I think you'll start to find that most of the things that make it feel like that were things you could control and you were consciously choosing to do in that moment in time. And I really don't care if it's because I was very excited at the new relationship. The fact is that I was able to do it, right? So I should be able to choose to continue to do it for the longevity of the relationship. It shouldn't be a phase. So yeah, love is not something that fades. I mean, you nourish love. You keep it alive by doing certain things that nourish it, that grow it. And sometimes it's not about growing it, just maintain it if it's at a good level. And I think what I read today was just we seem to stop being more compassionate the longer we're in relationships. And I don't think it's a conscious thing. I think subconsciously maybe there's something there that just says, Michelle will never leave me because she really loves me. And you're not very conscious of how sometimes you being very nitpicky about certain things is actually impacting her So yeah, I guess today was more me just thinking out loud and sharing my thoughts with you in the hopes that perhaps we can start to ask these questions a bit more. If you're in a relationship and you're feeling like it's not feeling the way it used to, it doesn't even have to be in the beginning, but it's just not feeling the way it used to when it was really good. It's an opportunity for you to ask yourself, what are the things that perhaps I've stopped doing that used to nourish that feeling, and how do I get back into the saddle and do them? Or it could be about investigating new ways to, make the relationship feel like the honeymoon phase all over again. And I'm a strong believer that things that we can actively control are things we can persistently provide. So find out what that feels, looks like, what are the actions, what could they be, and let's just get into the culture of nourishing the honeymoon phase in the longevity of all our relationships. Share your thoughts with me on today's topic. Give any insights that you might have. As you can see, I'm really just thinking over this topic today, not really very directional in like what it is that we should do, but I'm thinking about it. And sometimes all you need to do from a growth perspective is to see things differently and start to think about them, and you will get an answer. And this is my journey, just trying to figure out how I maintain the quality of relationship that I consciously would want to. And it means I'm more conscious about what makes my relationship feel, what makes it feel right, what makes it feel the way I would term it in a honeymoon phase. And I'm taking the accountability now to learn what those things are and constantly provide them, right? And I'm doing it consciously. So it's no longer like a subconscious thing that's happening. It's me actively interrogating it myself to say, what are the things that are really not. And this involves having a conversation with your partner. Like, why are we in such a happy space? What is it that I do that helps you feel like this is a happy relationship, and kind of get their input on that as well. Alrighty, and that's me for today. Until next time, be good and take care of yourselves. Bye.